Welcome back to Cask in Point. Today is going to be a fun day. We are drinking some Jack Daniels 10 and some Jack Daniels 12. Now, if you didn't know, Jack Daniels started their aged program in 2022 with the release of Jack Daniels 10, and at that time it actually wasn't batch numbered at all. The bottle just said Jack Daniels 10, 97 proof. But in 2023, they released Batch 2, labeling it Batch 2, also 97 proof, and then in 2024, they released Batch 3. And in 2023, they also released Jack Daniels Batch 12. Now, Jack Daniels 12 is released at 107 proof, and then obviously in 2024, they released Batch number 2. So at this point, we have 3 batches of Jack Daniels 10 and 2 batches of Jack Daniels 12. And I've heard everything about Jack Daniels. Some say that this is the whiskey of the year every single year, and Jack Daniels 12 just utterly kills the competition, better than Coy Hill, better than all these amazing bottles. Some say it's good, it's not incredible. So today we're going to find out for ourselves, and what better way to do it than to try every single batch at once. So the goal today is to compare batch 1, batch 2, and batch 3 here of the Jack Daniels 10, and then on my side here we have Jack Daniels batch 1 and batch 2. We're going to go through them all. We're gonna do tasting notes, and we're gonna find out who is truly the king of the Jack Daniels age stated bottles. And it also seems like there is going to be a Jack Daniels 14 coming out soon. Probably going to come out, I would imagine, in February, since these do release in February around the country. A little bit later than the rest of the kind of special allocation releases, which makes sense. Jack Daniels obviously releases their annual release every single year. In 2023, they had the twice barreled rye, which I'll show a photo of. And so they probably are doing enough at that time of the year in the, September, November, that kind of era. And so they're saving these age stated for February when people have kind of relaxed a little bit, have spent all their time and money on whiskey, but then they'll get some good old Jack Daniels 10 and 12. And so I expect that 14 is going to come out sometime around then. And the initial label approval did say 125 proof. Now, this was likely just a label approval, and it will probably be somewhere in the 110s, but this is pure speculation. We have no idea. All we know is that 10 is 97 proof, 12 is 107 proof, and we're going to find out if that really leads to that much more flavor. And hopefully we'll have 14 and 15, and they actually say they want to go up to 18 years and even a 21 year, hopefully in the next 9 or 10 years, if they can get it so that the whiskey isn't only tasting like oak and they could really refine the aging on there. So we'll see how they do. Hopefully they do amazing, but let's see how they've been doing so far. So we are going to start with the Jack Daniels 10s. We're going to compare them. We're going to see which one is the best. And then we're going to do the Jack Daniels 12s, and then we'll kind of talk about all of them. We'll rate all of them. As you know, if this is your first Cask and Point review, I rate every single whiskey I've ever had. If you check my website, you'll see a bunch of ratings. But we're gonna get into this. And this Jack Daniels batch number 1 here, getting a little bit of ethanol, actually. And with definitely some caramel, some charcoal, some banana. Pretty typical Jack Daniels flavors on this one. And there's a little bit of cherry, kind of dark red plum on this one. Not a ton else. I mean, it's a very pleasant profile, I will say. The ethanol is probably the most surprising part of this. These have all been sitting out for 15 to 20 minutes now, so nothing is straight out of the bottle or the sample jars, I should say. But it is good. I mean, it smells nice. It doesn't smell like anything crazy, but I definitely think this is some good whiskey. So let's taste it and let's do this. Oh wow. Getting some like candied bananas on this one. Some caramel, some cherries really. Definitely some oak. Not a ton of oak though. I think there would have been a lot more oak on this if they bottled it at cask strength. But obviously 97 proof is getting so much water, since obviously we can kind of infer based off of the Jack Daniel's single barrel proofs that these are probably around 125 to 130 proof, even at this age. Maybe it's even a little bit higher. And so there's quite a lot of water in this product. And so that watered down effect, I think, tends to, kind of take away the oak on whiskeys that are in the 10 to 12 year range. Now, obviously, if a whiskey gets to 15, 16, 18 years, it's just going to be an oak bomb no matter how much water is on it, as long as it's like 90 proof. But this, it has oak on it, but it doesn't have as much oak as I was expecting. I mean, it's there, and it's definitely mixing with a lot of good cherries, kind of giving like a sweet oak aroma. Not super toasty, but there's some butter, some cream on this one. I mean, it's very pleasant. I will say it's definitely somewhere in the sevens. We'll take a second sip here, and then we'll move on to batch number 2. It's good. It's Jack Daniels. I don't think I like it more than just the 6-year, or I should say 4 to 7 year, but probably around 6-year single barrel proof. Kind of just get a little bit more flavor on this one for a very similar flavor profile. Not super impressed, but not disappointed. I think it's a good relaxing pour. I think it has enough flavor in there, and there's basically no punch in the face. You're not getting the kind of hazmat gut liver punch, whatever. So it's good, but let's see if they got better as they continued to blend these Jack Daniel's 10s. Cleanse the palate here. Let's go on to Jack Daniel's 10, batch number 2. Yeah, definitely getting a lot more red fruit on this one. I mean, let's see. There's a lot less ethanol, I will say. Yeah, this one is coming off as kind of caramel and charcoal and ethanol. This one, there's a lot more red fruit. Which is, I think, a much more pleasant. Yeah, definitely some caramel, some oak, sweet oak, a little bit of toast. Not super different, though. I mean, you were looking at pretty similar flavor profiles. Obviously, I mean, this is the same bottle in theory, just a different batch. It shouldn't be that much different, but if you know anything about me, all I care about is different batches of different products. I'm trying to get every single Elijah Craig and Stag batch and all that, so I definitely like to find out what the variations are between these different batches. But not super different. I think the only big difference is that there's a little bit more red fruit on this one. I think I'm getting a lot more of that cherry, that plum. Not really a ton of stone fruit. I mean, it's really kind of the dark fruit. Maybe some blackberry, black raspberry, stuff like that. Let's try this. Let's see how it is. Wow. So this one, the palate isn't that different. It's giving me a bit more charcoal, which is surprising. I'm definitely getting the red fruit coming through on it. Very similar to batch 1. I mean, really not super different at all. I would say it's marginally better, if that. I think if you like kind of the red fruit flavors on Jack Daniels, you'll like this a little bit more. But if you're more of the caramel, bananas, I mean, the candied bananas on this was really nice. And I'm not really getting that nearly as much on batch number 2 here. I mean, it smells very similar, but really just not getting a ton of flavors. Now, obviously, I don't think we're reviewing the best whiskey in the world, at least for the 10s. Now, the 12s, I'm going to hold to some pretty high standards, because these are commanding something like $175 online. For the batch 1, it's probably about $225 right now. And some say that they're the whiskey of the year. So I'm going to treat these like these are the whiskey of the year. But 10, this is the younger brother. This is the one that, you try, and hopefully it's a good, nice sipper, but, don't have the highest expectations for it. But this really isn't, it's mid-sevens. It's a good pour. I don't think this is worthy of like a huge end-of-week pour. It's not hitting like that 8 level, like the Stag level or anything for me. But it's good. It is good, and I'll take a second sip here, see if I change my mind at all. I mean, the finish, short to medium. The dry oak and some pepper, you're going to get a lot of that towards the kind of late, finish on this one. It is a little bit drying. The fruits just die pretty quickly on it, unfortunately. It's good, but I do think there's a lot better out there. And I do have high hopes for this Jack Daniel's 10 batch number 3. Some say that this is by far the best one. And it definitely smells good. I will cleanse the palate here a little bit. Always good to have a clean palate, clean glasses. I am very OCD about my whiskey, for better or for worse. So everything is always deep cleaned, and it's very important to do that with your whiskey. Got a little bit on my nose there. But getting a lot more red fruit on this one than I have on the previous two. This is definitely giving me, the same kind of bananas, charcoal, oak. There is a little bit more ethanol here on this one than I think on the two. Definitely less than the one. But again, a very similar flavor profile here. There isn't a ton going on. It's relatively simple. The flavors are good, but I'm not gonna get 30 flavors out of this. Again, these bottles, I think the Jack Daniel's 10 is looking around 85 MSRP, and the 12 is around 95 MSRP. So very similar actually in MSRP, but obviously, these bottles aren't even looked at as, absolute like $300, $500 bottles by Jack Daniels, although they do have a history of not really having bottles that are that expensive, so good on Jack Daniels. But anyways, let's try this batch number 3 here. Let's see if it's any better than 1 or 2, which I would say both are kind of in the mid-7 range right now. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's better. That's better. That's the best one. For sure, that's the best one. The balance of fruit and charcoal and the kind of banana. When I say fruit, like the dark, red cherries, red plums, black currant, red currant, those kinds of things. I'm getting a lot more of that on this one, but I'm also getting more charcoal. I'm actually just getting kind of more flavor on everything, and I like the balance a lot more. I think this one gave me a lot of the candy bananas. This one gave me the fruit without as much charcoal, and this batch number 3 is really giving me a good mix of both. I think this is definitely the best one. It's not that much better, to be fair, but it's a little bit better. And I will say, I have a fun story with this Jack Daniel's 10 batch too. It was one of the first bottles I had ever bought that was super allocated, and I bought it in December of last year. And I remember I had bought it for $175. And I bought it because, in part, there was a liquor store that I had gone to previously that was doing a Penelope tasting, and I had about 8 different Penelopes right before I went to the store, and I wasn't driving, don't worry. But when I went and I looked at that liquor store and I saw the Jack Daniel's 10 and I wanted to build a relationship with the owner, so I picked it up for $125. Totally overpaid. I killed that bottle. It was a good bottle. I enjoyed it with a lot of friends, and a lot of friends liked it. So, any bottle that you enjoy enough, I think is worth it, but definitely overpaid a little bit on that one, which kind of put a bad taste in my mouth for Jack Daniels for a while. But this batch number 3 here, I did buy a few of these, and I've long finished all of them actually. But it is very good. I think definitely the best of the 3. I mean, you're just getting so much more flavor on this to the point where I'm actually interested to see how much more different the 12s are going to be, because this is a contender. I mean, this is high 7s. We're still not at that kind of weekly sipper 8 rating. I don't think these are going to hit it. These could get much closer though, so we will see. I will take a second sip here, and then we'll move on to the Jack Daniel's 12s. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There is a little bit more punch on this one. So if you're looking for, a relaxing, sweet, pour, this is going to give you that relaxing pour, but there's some kick to it. And I like kick in my whiskey. I like hazmat whiskeys. I like this more. I could see a case to be made that 2 or 1 is a little bit more, of a softer pour if that's what you're going for. And this isn't an overly complex whiskey, so you may be looking for the kind of, kind of like a daily sipper, you just want to drink it, it's good, but this is giving me some great flavors, and it's giving me a lot of them, and I like that. So right now, I'm thinking 1 and 2 are both around a 7.5, and this one's higher, maybe even a 7.7 or 7.8. But we're gonna try these 12s here. We're gonna see how they contend. And I do have my standard is to do 1 ounce. These are a lot closer to 1.5 ounces, so I may not finish all the whiskey here right now. I will be finishing it within the next hour, though. I assure you, this whiskey will not be going to waste. But let's see how this Jack Daniel's 12 stands up. We are starting with batch number 1. This is the 2023 release. It does say batch 1 on the bottle. 2 years older, 10 extra proof points. Let's see what the difference is. Oh yeah, on the nose I'm getting a lot more oak. a lot more actually like old aged musty oak, which is really pleasant. One of my favorite notes on a whiskey, especially when you're drinking stuff that has an age statement that you're hoping tastes a little bit older. That musty sweet oak, and it's mixing with caramel. It's mixing with candied bananas with charcoal. That is really nice. That is definitely the best nose that I've had so far. Not a ton of ethanol heat. Not a ton of red fruit though. Interestingly enough, I mean, I'm getting the caramel. I'm getting a lot of oak, but I'm not getting a ton of fruit here. Let's take a sip. Let's find out what Jack Daniel's 12 Batch 1 is all about. Oh, that's good. That's good whiskey. Yeah. So getting a lot of the caramel, the candied bananas. There's a little bit of red fruit. I do wish there was actually a little bit more red fruit on this one because then I would really feel like there was a nice balance. It's not introducing a ton of flavors. That is a big thing I think between the 10s and the 12s. You're getting a very similar flavor profile. You are getting oak, some cherry, kind of red fruit flavors, a little bit of caramel, some bananas, which is standard on Jack Daniel's products, and some charcoal, which again, very standard on Jack Daniel's products, all because of their charcoal filtering. This is giving me a lot of that, but it's a little bit hotter, I will say. You know, I'm definitely feeling the 10 proof points on this one, but it's really doing it and bringing it together very nicely. I think very kind of a smooth pour. Again, it isn't something I usually like to describe my whiskeys as, but this is really getting that. It's definitely getting close to that kind of weekly pour level to me. Definitely high sevens on this one. Definitely beating out these three right now. Let's take a second sip and then we'll move on to the final batch that we are reviewing today, Jack Daniel's 12 Batch 2. Yeah. Yeah. Charcoal, banana, some red fruit, some oak. Getting a lot of these flavors. They're good. They're very good. There's a good balance here. It's not that different from the 10 for what it's worth. I mean, I've seen some liquor stores that are putting the 10 at $200 and the 12 at $600. And look, if you have the money, that's all you. That's not me. I'm not spending $600 on this. That's all you. But I could not recommend that. It's not that different. If the 10 is going to be $100 cheaper, I would think the 10 is probably a better bang for your buck, especially this batch 3. But I will hold my words for just a second because we are going to try Jack Daniel's 12 Batch 2. Let's see how this stands up. A lot more red fruit. Probably the most red fruit out of any of these. Actually, I'm going to smell it against the 10 here. So there's more red fruit on the Batch 3 than there was on Batch 1 and 2 for Jack Daniel's 10. But I think this has more red fruit than any of the 5. And there's caramel, there's still these bananas, there's still these charcoal. It's Jack Daniels. That's what they give us. Definitely the red fruit is the most prominent note, though, I will say. And obviously, compared to the other batch, the batch 1 other Jack Daniels 12 here, yeah, this is giving me a lot more of the kind of the caramelly, charcoaly, you know, kind of like the relationship between 1 and 2 and 3 here is the relationship between 1 and 2 in Jack Daniels 12. I guess in 2024 they just went with their red fruit because I'm getting so much more red fruit on this than I am. Well, let's taste it first. Let's see how good it is. Oh, that's a good pour. Oh, it's still going. Wow. The cherries are still there. Very strong cherries. Caramel everywhere. Oh, like not a ton of musty oak, unfortunately. There's definitely oak, some toast, definitely the kind of like burned oak, charcoaly flavors here that you get on the Jack Daniels. Definitely some banana. I am not getting nearly as much kind of old, refined oak on this one, which is a huge pro of the Jack Daniel's 12 Batch 1. Uh, Definitely getting a lot more of the fruity flavors and a lot more of them. And I think, you know, on a different day, I could really prefer 1 versus really prefer 2. But that's really what you're looking at here. You want like the musty oak, refined caramel and charcoal, and you're not really gonna get much fruit versus fruity, but really pleasant, really caramel, really oaky, but not. It doesn't taste as old, which is odd because obviously you're looking at two 12-year whiskeys, but of course these are blends. We obviously know these aren't single barrel whiskeys, and so it's totally possible they're throwing 13, 14, 15, 16-year whiskey into this. And I would say that the 12 batch one definitely tastes older. So I would not at all be surprised. Obviously, we can never truly know unless Jack Daniels told us, but which they obviously won't. But I think the batch one has a lot more of, if there are older barrels in any of these, it's in batch one of Jack Daniels 12. But the fruitiness on the batch two should not be understated. It is very good. I'm going to go through these one last time and rate everything, but this Jack Daniel's 12, I think this is a closer battle than I was expecting. I was kind of expecting one of them to really take it home, but they're actually they're very similar flavor profiles, but they highlight such different aspects of that flavor profile. And so it's going to be a little difficult to rate this one, but thankfully, I rate whiskeys all day, every day, so hopefully, we'll come up with some good numbers here. But let's take a second sip, and then we're going to go back through, and we're going to rate everything. Yeah. Cherry. Oak. Banana. I would say this finish is medium to long. This is not that relaxing of a pour. Which is, because at 107 proof, I would expect the pour to throw a lot of, refined flavors at me, but it's not actually going to get a ton of alcohol punch. This actually gets a lot of alcohol punch, for better or for worse. And I think when I'm thinking about some other lower proof whiskeys that, I know it's funny to say 107 lower proof, it's not low proof, but when I'm thinking of the lower proof whiskeys that have a lot of flavor, they're giving me, high viscosity and doing things that, are really enjoyable. But this one is kind of just giving me a lot of punch and a lot of cherry and a lot of oak in a way that I don't know how unique this really is relative to like a really good Jack Daniel's single barrel proof that's going to be $60 and you're going to find it on every single store because if you don't mind the punch, that's going to give you punch. And that drink's way below 130 proof anyways. Those are drinking closer to 110, 115 proof. And if this is actually tasting a little bit higher than 107 proof, it's not actually all that different. But we're going to go through, and then I'll give some final feedback here. But we're going to start with the 10s. We're going to rate them. We're going to rank them. Let's do this. And I'm going to start with batch number 3. The 2024 release. Like I said, I think I bought 2 or 3 of these bottles I bought. And I remember I went to a liquor store, I bought the bottle, and then he actually texted me and said, my brother at his liquor store also has a bottle if you want that. And I said, let me think on it. And then that night I cracked the bottle, and then I said, yeah, I'll take it. So that's how I ended up with 2. And then I found a third, actually, now that I think about it. I found a third for even cheaper than I paid for those 2. So, always good to remember, if you look hard enough, sometimes you can find some pretty cool things at the right times of the year. So, a bit more caramel on this than the first time I was going around. There's some cherry, there's some oak. I don't even know if the tasting notes are going to be as useful on this flight than they have been on a lot of the other flights that I'll do in the future or have done in the past because they're just such similar things. And so I'll really just say it's the cherry that's dominating on this one. Kind of like a red plum that's, really ripe and giving me, almost like it's almost going to be like a sour, like really fruity, really, not a ton of caramel, there's caramel, but not a ton of oak, not a ton of charcoal or banana. Really just give me a very fruity flavor profile here. Let's taste it and let's rate it. It's an enjoyable pour. It's more relaxing than both of the Jack Daniel's 12s. Which has its pros and its cons. Obviously, you're not looking for, a lot of pours to punch you in the face every single day. Now, I kind of am. That's a different story. But I think if you're looking, to kind of just sit back one night, enjoy some good whiskey, not get punched in the face, don't need a warm up pour or anything. This could even be a warm up pour. This is very good. And I think I would rate this. I'm going to go with a 7.7. I think it doesn't meet that weekly level here, but it definitely is a good bit better than, I would take this over the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof Rye that I've tried. I'd take this over the bourbon, like, barely. Like, we're comparing 7.5s and 6s to 7.7 here. It's very close, but I do think this is a little bit better. I think it's giving me so much flavor and not punching me in the face while doing it, which is an enjoyable characteristic in whiskey sometimes. So, I'm going to give this a 7.7. And we're going to move on to batch number 2 here. My first ever Jack Daniel's aged bottle that I bought. Overpaid for. But let's see how good it is. It's just less flavor. Like, it's giving me... I will say, if this is giving me a lot of red fruit versus kind of, that kind of more caramel, charcoal, banana, this is actually giving me... And I think I said this one was more well-balanced. I will actually say 2 is probably the most well-balanced. But it's almost bad. Like, it's giving me a lot of the same flavors, and it's giving me a lot of the same, like, amount of the same flavor, but it's not giving me a lot of it. It's actually, it's kind of a little bit more tamed down. I think it's giving me, the charcoal, the banana, the red fruit, all at the same time. It's balanced, it's relaxing, but it's almost to the point where I'm not getting a whole lot. Like for some reason, this batch 3 just has so much more flavor, and so I'm thinking this one is going to be a 7.4. It's a good bit worse. I don't think I would take this over the Single Barrel Proof Rye. I think I could go 50-50 with the Single Barrel Proof Bourbon or, bourbon Tennessee whiskey. I'm going to try batch number 1 here. May bump this to a 7.5. I'm still kind of thinking, and we're going to try batch number 1 and see. So in batch number 1, definitely the hardest to find right now. Odds are, if you see it on a shelf, it's $400, and it's been sitting there for 2 years, and it's $400, so that's why nobody bought it. But... people talk a lot of crap about this bottle. And you know what? It's totally holding its own, at least against batch 2. And going back to it, I'm getting a ton of caramel. I mean, so much caramel on this. And the mix of charcoal and the mix of a little bit of banana here. That's a nice nose. That's a nice nose. That's better than batch 2's nose. I might even say it's better than batch 3's nose. I mean, it smells nice. Like, it's a different flavor profile. I mean, it's highlighting different flavors. Like I said, this is the fruity, this is the caramel and charcoal, but it's very nice on the nose. But let's see how it follows through. It's nice. It's nice. I think it's better than batch number 2. I think I would take this over the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof whiskey, the Tennessee whiskey. It's neck and neck with the rye. It's just such a different flavor profile. I think I would rate them around the same. But I think this is better than the 2, and I don't think it's that close. I think this is a 7.4. I think the batch number 1 is a 7.6. It's neck and neck, and here, I'll put them in order here. It's neck and neck with batch number 3. I think if you really like caramel, if you really like kind of that like charcoaly banana flavor profile on Jack Daniel's, you will like the batch number 1 the most, which is weird because I don't think most people think batch number 1 is the best, but it's holding its own. It's giving me a lot of good caramel flavors. I like it. I'm willing to give the hot take. I think it's great whiskey. I think this is a 7.6. I think this is 7.7. And so number 1 is batch number 3, number 2 is batch number 1, and number 3 is batch number 2. But let's see how the 12s hold up. Let's see if either of these can really compete. I can tell you this is going to be the worst one of the whole flight for sure. But let's try batch number 1, Let's give it a. Actually, I'll try with batch number two. I guess I'll do reverse like I did for the tens here. Trying the 2024. So I'm getting a little bit more aged oak on this. Again, it has been opening up now for probably about 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Definitely more the cherry though. Definitely a ton of cherry on this. It's good. It's it's not super complex, unfortunately, but I do like it. I do like it a lot. And there is a little bit of ethanol in there. Like you are getting 107 proof on this for sure. Let's try it. Let's see how good it is. That flavor just keeps going. Like that's what's putting it right now at number one. And obviously we'll try the batch number one, we'll test it. It's not that much better than batch number three. I am debating between 7.8 and 7.9 right now. It's close. I mean, the finish is just so much longer. But can I really say that I would take this over, some things that I've rated in the high sevens? I don't think so. I think this is a 7.8. I think the flavor profile, I actually think the Jack Daniel's 10 Batch 3 is a better flavor profile. I think if this was 107 proof, this would be the clear winner. But I think it's a little bit worse of a flavor profile. I mean, to the point where I might even rate them around the same. And this actually I don't think is that hot of a take, because I do think some people have said that they like the Jack Daniel's 10 Batch 3 more than the Jack Daniel's 12 Batch 2. And on the nose, they're similar, very similar. This is a better flavor profile. This is a better finish. I'm actually going to do a second sip here because I really want to think about this. Yeah. I mean, it's going so much longer, but it's not like there are a ton of good flavors that I'm getting a ton of. So, okay, I'm going to say it's about 7.7 right now. And I'm going to revisit this to decide who's the winner between those two. But let's do Jack Daniel's 12 Batch 1, and let's see if this is a clear winner, if this is third or fifth. Pardon, it's not going to be fifth, but let's find out. Okay. Wow, there's actually more cherry on this now. And I'm still getting that kind of old musty oak. That's nice. That's very nice. That's the best nose out of all of them, I think. Yeah, I mean this is giving me the tens are just giving me a little bit of ethanol heat on all of them. Oh my god, that's candied bananas. Oh my god, that's the best nose of the tens. But I think this 12, I mean, I may even say Jack Daniel's 10 Batch 1 is the best nose, but it's just not following through as much as I wish it did on the Paladin finish, which is why it's currently in third. But I'm confident on this as a 7.4. I'm confident this is a 7.7. May go back to these two since we do have a little bit more, but let's try this batch one here. It's good. It's giving me more flavor. I'm just trying to think if that flavor is really good flavor. I think it has a good balance of oak and cherry. I think it's a good balance of kind of like it's giving me some of the caramel. It's not overwhelming me with the caramel. It's not absolutely blowing me away. I might even say that this is worse than the 12 and worse than Jack Daniel's 10 Batch 3. Some people really like this. Some people go crazy for this whiskey, and I think if you're into the less fruity profiles with Jack Daniels, you are going to love this. I think the fruit adds a good dimension that I really like, that I think can, it's not as extreme as some other bottles where the cherry, is a difference between like being good and being great, like, Elijah Craig, I'm thinking about you. But it's giving me a lot of, it's giving me some caramel. It's not giving me a ton of cherry. That old musty oak, that was nice. Like, I do like some good old musty oak. I'm going to take a second sip here before I rate it. It's tough. That's tough. That's number one. It's number one, but it's close. It's number one, but it's really close. 7.8. It's not blowing me away, but I do like the balance of flavors. I do like just how much it's giving me here. It's really, it's refined. It's old oak. It's not as much cherry forward, but I think I can live with that. I think Jack Daniel's 12 Batch 1 is gonna take the cake here. I think number 5 is going to be Jack Daniel's 10 Batch 2. I'm going to take one more small sip out of these two to rank everything else. Now, this is the toughest fight that I've done so far. I haven't done that many yet, but it's a lot closer than I was expecting. I was expecting a lot more difference, but it seems like, to Jack Daniel's credit, they are keeping their batches pretty consistent with these. And that's a good thing. I'm trying to see, do I have more water? I have some more water somewhere, so I might have to get up and get a little bit more water. But I'm going to try this Jack Daniel's 10 Batch 3. It's not giving me musty oak. I wish it was giving me more musty oak. I'm going to grab a little bit of water, and then I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. I have a little bit more water. Let's get through these last two. I think this video is already longer than I expected it to be because this was much closer than I thought. But let's drink the rest of this Jack Daniel's 10 Batch. Maybe not the rest, but we'll drink quite a bit. Yeah, it's fruity. I said it's fruity. I am comparing something with a longer finish, more flavor, and something that tastes better. I am going with the one that tastes a little bit better. It's close. It's really close. I'm actually going to rate them both a 7.7, but this does take the slight edge. Not enough of an edge that I would give them a different number on a 10, but kind of a 100-point scale since I do use the 10th decimal place. It's really close. I think I could go for either one on either day. But that Jack Daniel's 10 Batch 3, that's a good batch. It's not giving me as much, it's giving me a good amount of flavor. I wish it would give me more. If this was 100% proof, I am telling you, this would be the number one by far. The last thing I want to do is I do want to finish off this because this is the surprise of the day. I thought this was going to be dead last, and it's not. It's really competing with these top three here. Let's take this last sip. On some days, I would even take that as number one. And really, it's so much more caramel than everything else. It's just a little bit simple. Which is why I'm going to leave it as a 7.6. I'm going to say it's fourth. But on some days, I really think that could be number one for some people. If you're looking for like just a simple caramel with a little bit of Jack Daniels, go for this. And really, it's the most caramel of all the flavor profiles I've had of any single barrel proof of any Jack Daniel's 10 or 12. Of that standard, cherries and oak and charcoal and banana and all that good flavor profile. This has the most caramel as a percentage of flavor profile than all of them. So if that's your thing, that's the batch for you. I'm going to rate it at a 7.6. I think it's slightly less enjoyable than the 12 batch 2 and the 10 batch 3, but it's actually really close. So that is a little bit interesting here. Now, we are out of whiskey. I think we've rated everything. We've ranked everything. Just one last time. Jack Daniel's 12 Batch 1 is the winner. 7.8. Jack Daniel's 10 Batch 3 is in second place, the silver medal at 7.7. Jack Daniel's 12 Batch 2 is in third place, also at a 7.7. Jack Daniel's 10 Batch 1 at a 7.6. And Jack Daniel's 10 Batch 2 is a 7.4. It's the worst. It's the worst by a good bit. Don't get this batch. Avoid it if you see it in a store. Odds are if you see it in a store, it's too expensive and you probably shouldn't be buying it anyways. But those are the ratings for today. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. This was one of the hardest fights I've ever done. I've done a lot of stag flights already. I've done a lot of Elijah Craig flights already. I've done a lot of flights This was the closest of any flight I think I've ever done. This top 4 here on different days I think could even look slightly different, but today, this is what I think it is. I hope you all enjoyed. You learned more about the flavor profiles. You learned about which batches you should avoid and which ones you should get. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one. Thank you.